Hey, students of APUSH. First off, I just want to make sure that everyone's doing well, that everybody and their families are healthy, and that everybody is maintaining proper social distancing so that we can hopefully get back to school sometime soon. Speaking of school, of course, I'm sure everybody has been thinking about the AP exam coming up, and therefore I just wanted to try to address a few questions that some of you may have and that some students have sent to me. So if I don't happen to answer your question in this video, if you'd like, you can always just contact me via Google Classroom, and I will certainly get back to you as soon as I see your note. So, in any event, let's address some of the questions that have come up. Some have been sent out on the Snapgram, some on the InstaChat, some on the Twitter. So, here goes. The first question actually comes to us from a James C., and his question is, what does AP stand for? And although it's kind of late in the game to be asking that question, James, you should, of course, know at this point that stands for Advanced Placement. So hopefully that takes care of that. Another important piece of information that you'll all hopefully be familiar with already, if not, I'd like to address, and that is, of course, when will the actual AP exam be for U.S. history? And that's going to be on Friday, the 15th of May. So mark your calendars for that one. Again, I'm sure most of you are probably already aware of that, but just to be on the safe side. Okay, so speaking of the 15th of May, another question comes to us from a Terry G. And Terry wants to know, do I have to wake up early on the day of the exam? And unfortunately, Terry, the answer to that question is yes, because the exam's at 2 p.m. So hopefully you'll be up by then. Set an alarm clock. Okay. Another question that has been asked by a few students is, do I have to take the AP exam? Now, I think that question is more common among seniors than it is among juniors. I know many of you still maintain a bit of ambition, unlike the seniors, unlike you guys a year from now. But of course, some of you have considered the possibility of perhaps not taking this year's exam. So the answer to that question is yes, you have to take the AP exam in order to get AP credit. Now, as to the Regents exams, you may have already heard, those have been canceled. So that's kind of a mixed blessing for you guys, because historically that's been a test that has been a real boost for many of you and your averages, as it counted for 20% of your grade for the year, more than any single marking quarter, in fact, and historically students have done exceptionally well on that test. So you're missing out on that opportunity, but obviously these are extraordinary circumstances, so we'll just have to deal with that one. So it is a requirement, of course, to take the AP exam. That's not just from the teachers, but also from administration. I believe that's already been communicated to your parents as well, that the expectation is that if you are in an AP course, in order to get credit for that course, you must take the exam. So E and B would like to know what the format of the AP exam will be. And this has been the subject of a lot of discussion, a lot of consternation, honestly, among teachers and I'm sure students as well, because the test this year will be only a modified DBQ question. The question will be 45 minutes long. It will be pared down to include only 5 documents. I'm going to post another video that deals more specifically with that, and also, of course, share some information with you from College Board, the rubric that they'll be using, etc. Generally similar to the normal DBQ rubric, but obviously with some modifications given the changed format of the exam. So, in any event, that's it, right? No multiple choice, no short answer questions, no long answer questions, just the DBQ. So again, I think that's proven to be a little bit contentious, because I know for many of you that's not necessarily the part that you feel the most comfortable with. I know students in general have historically not really welcomed the DBQ essay. They've struggled a little bit with it. But again, I think this year more than any other year, it's going to be very important to adhere to the rubric and make sure that you're addressing each of the key points in the question in order to obtain the full amount of credit. So I would hope that, given the unique circumstances we're operating under here, the College Board would grade these with an eye toward leniency. But again, at some point, they do have to distinguish the threes from the fours, from the fives, from the stars, and so forth. So there's got to be some criterion by which they're going to make that distinction. So in any event, let's hope they lean a little bit towards the generous side, but we will certainly see once the grades start to come in. So another question comes to us from a Karen D, and she would like to know what material will actually be on the exam. So the exam this year will cover periods 3 through 7. So historically, I know most of you probably haven't memorized the periods. If you have, you should probably get outside a little bit more. In any event, the historical chronological time periods would be 1754 through 1945. So obviously, if you've been keeping up with your work, which most of you, all of you really have, I want to commend everyone for that. In fact, you know that we've been studying history beyond that, but again, having a well-rounded understanding of history includes obviously studying the more recent history, perhaps even more so than the other material. So the other APUSH teachers and I have agreed that it's important for you guys to continue to familiarize yourselves with the new material. So my neighbors are outside yelling. All right, anyway. So another question comes to us from a Jenna M, and that question is, can I still continue to read the textbook for the material beyond 1945? And as I was saying, we certainly would encourage that, not just through the lessons that we've been posting, but if you want to return to the textbook as well and do further reading, by all means, that is encouraged. Now another question comes us from a Grant M, and Grant's question is, what is the name of our textbook? Now, actually, I'm not surprised that he's asking that question. I'm sure most of you probably don't know the answer to that yourselves, because as you know, while the book is titled Out of Many, it is subtitled Few Will Read. So that's the reality. But by all means, if you're having trouble sleeping, it's certainly a good way to help you nod off at night. So another question comes to us from Nicole and Maddie, and their question is, can they go to the cafeteria to get lunch? And unfortunately for you guys, it's closed. So let's take the next question then, and that is, can I take the test on paper, or do I have to type my answer? Now this is, I think, a pretty important question for a lot of you, because I'm sure that your proficiency with typing varies greatly. Some of you probably can type very well, don't have to look down. Others do the old hunt and peck method and probably struggle greatly. So if you're in the latter category and you struggle with typing, you do have the option of writing your answers by hand, taking a picture of that, and then posting that picture to the College Board website. So we're going to get more details as we get closer to the exam on how that will actually be accomplished, what will be acceptable digital formats for photos, etc. Although I'm sure standard, iPhone photo, GIF, or whatever the heck format they use will be more than sufficient to accomplish that. So as I said, I'll get back to you on further details with that. So you can, if you don't want to type, you can write your answers out by hand, take a picture, and post that. So that's good news, I think, for some of you. Another question comes to us from a Jeffy, and he wants to know, can he leave early to catch his bus? And my answer to you, Jeffy, is no. Okay, another question that I know many of you have at least considered or kind of tossed around given the unique nature of this year's test, which is this issue of cheating, copyright, cooperation, however you want to phrase it. Obviously, College Board is very concerned about this, and I can assure you they're going to take a lot of measures to try to counter student, let's call it, collaboration. I think one of the ways they're going to do this is they're going to use software that's similar to Turnitin.com, which basically matches various responses, and they can then see if there's overlap, there's a parallel between student A's answers and student B's answers, and then of course that will be flagged and then looked at directly by a reader. So I would strongly caution against trying to collaborate with anyone. But because it is an open book, open note test, I think the best thing for you to do is to have an outline handy, have a review book handy that you can use to at least refresh your memory. Again, they're really not looking so much for content, although obviously that's not irrelevant. They're looking for how do you kind of marshal that, use that content to make your point. So it's really about kind of checking the boxes. And again, we're going to get more into that as we proceed. So in any event, I'll read to you specifically what College Board has to say on this question. They write, students are not permitted to incorporate work which is not their own, and students are not permitted to provide or receive aid in any kind from anyone, in person, online, or mobile. During exams, students may not A. Communicate with any other person during the exam through any means, including online, in person, by mobile, or other device. B. Crowdsource support from group messages, online forums, or social media. And C. You may not incorporate the work of another student or technological service into your own exam response, including language translation. So again, I think they're going to really put a lot of energy into trying to thwart cheaters this year. They're probably going to monitor social media, and maybe they're going to have people out there pretending to be, Bobby from Garden City and saying, "Hey, does anybody have the answer to the APUS test?" and see if they can lure people in. I'm not really sure of what specific methods they'll use, but I'm sure they're going to make every effort to thwart any collaboration. So make it a priority to just do your work on your own and let the chips fall where they may. Okay, I just want to finish up with a couple of very important questions here. And one is, this comes to us from Page S. And Paige wants to know, was Joe Exotic framed? And my answer to you, Paige, is you can take that to the bank. Yes, why are you here? My daughter's just eavesdropping on the video, so maybe I'll just leave that in. But in any event, the last question here is, where is Carol's husband? Now, according to my daughter, they should probably check the septic tank. My suspicion is that he's probably buried behind the barn. So, in any event, to be continued. So, I just want to finish off by wishing everybody continued good health. Hopefully, that is your status at the moment for you and your families. And again, remember, your steps, your social distancing, your behavior is as much about you and your own health, which is, of course, very important, but also that of the people around you, right? The more we can maintain social distancing, the quicker we can get back to a normal life. All right, guys, I hope everybody's well, and I look forward to answering any further questions you might have and addressing some other issues in the near future. All right, take care, guys.